Hi friends. Today we embark on another captivating journey into the shadowy world of true crime stories. Get ready to investigate, discover, and reveal the secrets of a dark and dramatic case. Are you prepared to dive into this thrilling investigation? Let's begin now. Heather Garraus and Ignacio Garraus first crossed paths at a lively party during their time at the University of Northern Colorado. The atmosphere was electric, filled with laughter and music, as students gathered to celebrate the end of a semester. Ignacio was the kind of guy who radiated warmth and friendliness, his vibrant personality drawing people in like a magnet. From the moment Heather laid eyes on him at that party, she felt an undeniable spark. There was something about his easy smile and engaging demeanor that captivated her instantly. For both Ignacio and Heather, it truly was love at first sight. They exchanged glances that lingered a moment too long, each feeling a rush of excitement and curiosity. As they began to converse, it became clear that their connection ran deeper than mere attraction. They shared laughter and stories, each word exchanged weaving a thread of intimacy between them. Heather has a cheerful personality mixed with a bit of innocence. She is beautiful with pale skin, red lips, and black hair, which fascinates Ignacio, and he even calls her his Snow White. After Ignacio asked Heather out on their first date, she was excited and immediately shared the news with her roommate. Heather's friends were also very happy for her because she had never really been on a date before. They believed this date could be the start of something special. Heather and Ignacio's relationship quickly develops into something more serious. Ignacio is thoughtful and always surprises Heather with flowers or her favorite coffee. Heather feels loved and appreciated. After graduating from the University of Northern Colorado, Ignacio decided to take their relationship to the next level by proposing to Heather, which she happily accepted. However, Heather made a condition attached to their engagement. If Ignacio ever cheated on her, she would immediately end their marriage, regardless of any apologies or efforts, any modifications. This is a non-negotiable element for Heather, and she has made it clear that she will not tolerate infidelity. Heather and Ignacio got married within a year of their engagement, and it was a beautiful and joyful occasion. Ignacio became a law enforcement officer at the Colorado Police Department, while Heather worked as a supervisor at the local credit union in town. Her colleagues and customers at the credit union admire her. She is known for her exceptional skills in bringing comfort to association members when problems arise. One colleague even described Heather as wonderful over the past 5 years. After their marriage, Heather and Ignacio decided to expand their family. Heather eventually gave birth to a beautiful baby girl named Victoria. Becoming a mother brought Heather great joy, and her entire world revolved around her newborn daughter. Ignacio also proves to be an excellent father. From the outside, Heather and Ignacio's life seemed perfect. In 1997, Heather's father died of a heart attack. This tragic event followed another devastating blow just days after Heather's mother was diagnosed with cancer. Determined to be a devoted daughter, Heather took care of her mother for the next few years, selflessly supporting and caring for her. Heather's mother passed away in 2003. During this time, Ignacio proved to be a loving husband and good father, helping more with the couple's daughter, Victoria, and housework. However, after months of supporting Heather through her grief, Ignacio began turning his attention to colleague Shawna Nelson, a dispatcher at the police department. In 2004, Shawna married Ken Nelson, Wells County Deputy Sheriff. Ken and Shawna have 2 children, but their marriage is not going well. Ken later said things changed between him and Shawna after she returned to work after giving birth to her second child. Shawna and Ignacio's relationship started out friendly and then became more intimate. They began exchanging flirtatious comments and engaging in playful banter. Shawna's compliments attract Ignacio's attention, and over time, his interest deepens. As they continue to meet, their feelings become more passionate and intimate, despite their marital status. The relationship between Ignacio and Shawna quickly became the talk of the town, but Heather remained unaware of her husband's affair, even though everyone around them knew. No one feels comfortable revealing the truth to Heather, causing increased tension in Shawna and Ignacio's relationship while Heather remains in the dark. Shawna discovered she was pregnant and excitedly shared the news with Ignacio. However, Ignacio did not take this news well and began to question whether the baby was really his and not Shawna's husband, Ken. Shawna assured Ignacio that Ken had a vasectomy after their second child was born, eliminating the possibility of Ken being the child's father. Ignacio begins to worry about dire consequences if Heather finds out about Shawna's pregnancy. He didn't want this baby and was desperately looking for a solution. With Shawna's consent, he convinced her to have an abortion and took her in for the procedure. During the following months and years, Heather remained unaware of her husband's affair with Shawna. However, as time passed, Shawna became impatient and decided to confront Heather. One day, Shawna decided to follow Heather to the grocery store, accompanied by her best friend and partner in mischief, Michelle Moore. The two of them were determined to uncover what Heather was up to, so they discreetly trailed her through the aisles, carefully observing her every move. Heather, completely oblivious to their presence, was engaged in a lively conversation on her phone with a friend, laughing and chatting as she picked out groceries. Shawna and Michelle exchanged glances, sharing a mix of excitement and anticipation as they watched Heather navigate the store. After a while, Shawna's patience wore thin. Fueled by jealousy and anger, she approached Heather with a fierce determination. Without any hesitation, she unleashed a barrage of insults and accusations, hurling hurtful words that cut deep. Shawna called Heather names, aiming to humiliate her in front of other shoppers. Heather recognized Shawna from the police department's Christmas party and knew she was Ignacio's coworker. When Heather asked Ignacio why Shawna, who had always been nice to her, confronted her in the grocery store and spewed nasty words, Ignacio explained that Shawna had a crush on him, but that Heather didn't need to worry. Settle. He promised to tell Shawna to stop bothering her. Ignacio confronted Shawna and asked her to leave Heather alone, but Shawna was angry and relentlessly harassed Heather. One time, Shawna showed up at Heather and Ignacio's house, asking to see Ignacio. Although Heather didn't want to think there was something more between her husband and his coworker, she couldn't help but wonder. Shawna confided in someone at the county coordination center about her affair with Ignacio, expressing her deep feelings for him. However, Shawna also expressed disappointment that Heather was hindering their relationship. According to this supervisor, Shawna revealed that she went to the shooting range to vent her frustrations, and while shooting at the targets, she pretended it was Heather. Despite Shawna and Ignacio's years-long affair, Shawna's husband, Ken, had no idea until he read her diary, which detailed her relationship with Ignacio. Wanting to stay together for the sake of their children, Ken did not leave Shawna when he discovered her cheating. Shawna isn't the only person Ignacio is cheating on. Shawna herself knew about Ignacio's relationship with another woman. This understanding caused Shawna to keep Ignacio for a short period of time, determined to maintain her position as the only woman in his life. She threatens to tell Heather everything if he leaves her. Shawna's obsession with Ignacio grows stronger. In July 2005, Shawna went further to cement her place in Ignacio's life by tattooing his last name on her leg. Shawna's unhealthy obsession begins to escalate to the point where she stalks him. If Heather and Ignacio take daughter Victoria out to eat, Shawna and her family will definitely show up. Ignacio may find Shawna's behavior increasingly disturbing, but he continues to have an affair with her. When Shawna discovered she was pregnant with Ignacio's child for the second time, she told him there was no way she would have an abortion and wanted this child. In March 2006, Shawna gave birth to Ignacio's son, Christian. Since Shawna was still married to Ken and Heather did not know Ignacio had a child with a coworker, Ken offered to raise Christian as his own if Shawna remained married to him, and she agreed. In the summer of 2006, while Heather was out, one day a woman came to her with shocking news: Shawna Nelson had given birth to Ignacio's child. This revelation leaves Heather skeptical and confused. Upon returning home, Heather confronts Ignacio. Heather asks Ignacio for answers about the child. Once again, Ignacio lied to his wife to hide his affair with Shawna, and Heather continued to trust him. One night in December 2006, Heather woke up to find Ignacio missing. She sat up and waited for him to come home. When Ignacio finally returned, Heather wasted no time in confronting him. Instead of lying like before, Ignacio decided to tell Heather the truth. He confessed that he went out with Shawna that night and that their affair had gone on for years without her knowing. He also revealed about Shawna's 2 pregnancies and that she recently gave birth to his son. After confessing, Heather remembered what she said, that she would end the relationship if Ignacio cheated. She kicked him out of the house. However, Heather's strong desire to keep her family intact led her to call Ignacio again the next day. Despite her disbelief and anger, she did not want to break up her family and feared that Victoria would grow up in a broken home. Heather tells Ignacio that she knows he loves her and she loves him too. Heather expressed her desire to keep their marriage intact and said she had no intention of filing for divorce. However, she made it clear that she was not ready to return to the marriage immediately. Instead, Heather gave Ignacio a few conditions that had to be met before considering getting back together with him. One of the conditions is that Ignacio needs to get an STD test. Additionally, Heather recommended that Ignacio see a counselor, believing that counseling could help them overcome the challenges of rebuilding their marriage and resolve underlying issues that could lead to infidelity. Furthermore, Heather asked Ignacio to relinquish his paternity rights to Shawna's child. Finally, she asked Ignacio to end his relationship with Shawna. Ignacio really wants to save his marriage and agrees to all the conditions that Heather offers. He knows that he did wrong to her and is ready to make amends. Ignacio called Shawna and announced that he was ending their affair. While on the phone with Shawna, Heather stood nearby and heard the entire conversation. After Ignacio hung up, a text message arrived on Heather's phone, containing a picture of Shawna and Ignacio's son, accompanied by the words "IG's flesh and blood." Shawna's resentment was increased by the fact that Ignacio ended the relationship and decided to stay with Heather. She felt betrayed and abandoned, and her anger flared. Shawna began talking openly about suing Ignacio for child support to seek financial revenge for their son Christian. In early 2007, Ignacio and Heather were in the process of repairing their marriage after Ignacio's infidelity. Despite the challenges they face, the couple is determined to rebuild their relationship and make things work. However, Shawna never stopped harassing Heather. Her harassment became so bad that Ignacio and Heather had to take drastic measures to protect their family and property. They started parking Heather's car in the garage instead of on the street because they were afraid Shawna might damage their car. Additionally, the couple sought legal help and had their lawyers send Shawna an official notice asking her to stay away from Ignacio, Heather, and their daughter Victoria. The notice contains clear instructions to stop any harassing or threatening behavior. Despite warnings and consequences, Shawna refused to give in. She continued to harass Heather with texts, emails, and voicemails, taunting her with nasty and hurtful comments. On January 23, 2007, shortly after 6 p.m., Heather was leaving work at the credit union. She was looking forward to going home and spending the night with her daughter. However, Heather's peaceful evening was suddenly interrupted when she left the building with her colleagues. As they were repairing their car in a dark parking lot, they were approached by a person dressed in black, wearing a Halloween mask and brandishing a gun. The attacker specifically focused on Heather. While the rest of the group tried to hide, the attacker pointed the weapon at Heather's head and told her to kneel, and then shot Heather twice in the head execution style at close range. After shooting Heather, the attacker ran into a red pickup truck parked nearby and sped away. Heather's co-workers and other witnesses in the parking lot called 911. When paramedics arrived at the scene, they tried to save her life, but the gunshot wound to her head caused the fatal wound. Heather was pronounced dead at the scene. When police arrived at the parking lot to solve the case, they discovered the victim was their co-worker and Ignacio's wife. Recognizing Heather as the victim, officers contacted Ignacio and instructed him to go to the hospital immediately. As Ignacio walked through the hospital hallway to reach Heather's trauma room, a doctor stopped him to deliver the devastating news Heather had passed away. This news hit Ignacio hard, and he realized he would have to break the sad news to their 9-year-old daughter, Victoria. Telling Victoria that her mother had died was the hardest thing Ignacio had ever had to do. He recalled that they spent a long time holding each other and crying inconsolably as they shared their pain. While news of Heather's death spread, witnesses at the crime scene shared their accounts with police. A witness reported seeing the shooter suddenly appear before quickly disappearing in a red pickup truck. Another witness suggested the shooter could have been a woman based on the way they acted. During the investigation, a name was given in connection with the harassment of Heather, Shawna Nelson. Someone familiar with Ignacio's case mentioned that Shawna could be responsible for the shooting of Heather. The police officers at the scene were familiar with Shawna and her husband, Ken, because she was a dispatcher and Ken was a police officer. They learned that Ken owned a car similar to the one the shooter drove. With evidence against Shawna, the police issued arrest warrants on their radios for both her and the red pickup truck. Shawna's husband, Ken Nelson, was working the night shift and patrolling in his police car when he heard warnings about his wife and car on the radio. He immediately started looking for his wife. Within 20 minutes, Ken found Shawna driving near the house. Shawna told Ken she was running errands, but Ken became suspicious when he saw she wasn't wearing shoes, even though it was January in Colorado. Ken was even more worried when he saw her wearing his underwear and socks. Ken stopped his wife and called the police asking for assistance. The police soon arrived and arrested Shawna. Authorities began an investigation to determine her involvement in Heather's murder. Investigators discovered a pair of shoes with Shawna's DNA located less than 1,000 feet from the crime scene. Additionally, they recovered 2 shell casings from a .40 caliber Glock Model 22 from the parking lot where Heather was shot, the same weapon Ken used in his work. This coincidence further strengthens the case against Shawna. Investigators also discovered a Halloween mask hidden under the seat of Ken's red pickup truck, very similar to the mask worn by the suspect in the Heather shooting. During a search of Shawna's home, investigators discovered a bathtub filled with water, apparently waiting to clean up splashes that may have remained from the shooting. After her arrest, Shawna was thoroughly examined and her clothes and hands were swabbed for bullet wounds. The test results came back positive with much evidence. Shawna was eventually charged with first-degree murder. Although the bullet casings matched the weapon used to kill Heather, the actual gun used to kill Heather was never found. Because Ken stopped Shawna after the murder but did not detain her, he was charged with tampering with evidence and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. During detectives' questioning, Shawna said she had gone out to run errands and soiled the clothes in the basket, explaining why she was wearing her husband's clothes. She said that when she got to the store, she realized she had forgotten her wallet and drove home. When asked about Heather's murder, she denied knowing anything and denied any role in it. Ignacio was also extensively questioned by police after Heather's murder but was cleared of all suspicion. In February 2008, Shawna's trial began for Heather's murder. Shawna pleaded not guilty during the trial. The state argued that Ignacio was not the first married officer with whom Shawna had an affair, but that her attachment to Ignacio was the motivating factor in her murder of Heather. The state reached a settlement with Michelle Moore, Shawna's former best friend, who had been with Shawna when she taunted Heather in public. Michelle agrees to testify against Shawna to get a reduced sentence. During her testimony, Michelle discussed how much Shawna hated Heather. Michelle Moore even admitted to helping plan Heather's murder. Shawna took the stand in her defense during the trial, denying the charges against her. She firmly denied telling anyone that she had fantasized about killing Heather or visualized her during target practice. Additionally, Shawna denied having any involvement in the actual murder of Heather and said that she was on her way to a liquor store at the time of the shooting. During her testimony, Shawna offered an alternative theory as to who could have been responsible for Heather's death, claiming that Michelle, her best friend, was obsessed with her and wanted to make her happy, blessed by getting rid of Heather. However, when Michelle was called as a witness and cross-examined, she denied Shawna's claims. Prosecutors alleged that Shawna wore her husband's clothes during the shooting because she intended to frame him for murder. According to the prosecution, by eliminating Heather and Ken, Shawna and Ignacio will be free to live happily together. Once the jury was released to deliberate, it took them just 5 hours to reach a verdict. They found Shawna Nelson guilty of first-degree murder. The judge told Shawna she deserved every day of her sentence that she received. Michelle Moore, Shawna's former best friend, was sentenced to 9 years in prison for her role in planning Heather's murder after testifying against Shawna. Ken Nelson resigned from the police department after Shawna was convicted of murder and filed for divorce. After Shawna's guilty verdict, Ken moved out of state with his children, including Shawna's son Christian with Ignacio. However, after a while, Ken moved back to Colorado, hoping that one day the children would be able to visit Shawna in prison. Regardless of the circumstances, Ken believes that Shawna has always been a loving and wonderful mother. The charges against Ken were eventually dropped. Heather's loved ones are relieved that Shawna has been convicted and believe justice has been served. They hope Shawna continues to reflect on the pain she caused Heather every day for the rest of her life. Shawna's selfish actions drove Heather away from her family and deprived Victoria of her mother. In 2015, when Victoria was just 17 years old, she lost her life in a tragic car accident when she lost control and crashed into a tree, ending her life. Please ensure to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell to stay updated on all the intriguing cases in the True Crime Stories series. Be the first to receive updates on dramatic and thrilling crime stories.